Hello, everyone. I'm Anthi Frangiadis of the Drawing Room in downtown New Bedford. Welcome to our conversation with Michele Poirier-Mozzone, Fractured Light, an event part of the Water Series 2021 with our partner, DATMA. I'm joined today by two fabulous people, Amanda Hawkins and Michele Poirier-Mozzone. Amanda serves as the program coordinator for New Bedford-based organization DATMA. And Michele Poirier-Mozzone is an artist based in Massachusetts whose work is available here in the drawing room, focused on water. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
You're very welcome. Do you want to give us a quick overview of the work that DATMA is doing this summer in New Bedford with water?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you again for having me and for inviting DATMA to be part of this conversation and partnering with us, because Michele's work really speaks to our theme this year of water. DATMA is all about presenting exhibitions and public programs that have an overlap of contemporary design, art, and technology. And this is our third big exhibition year in downtown New Bedford, and we have three major exhibitions, all themed around water. So this year we are presenting Harvesters of the Deep, which is our photography exhibition that really celebrates portraits of women working in the fishing industry, featuring photographers Phil Mallow from New Bedford, Hyung-Sung Kim, who presents photographs of South Korean shellfish divers known as Hanya women, and Craig Easton, who also takes photographs and portraits of English smokehouse workers and traditional herring lassies. We also have another exhibition in the theme of water presented by Swiss installation artist Zamoon, which is at the CVPA Star Store campus at UMass Dartmouth downtown. And we also have an exhibition that's all about SMAST, the School for Marine Science and Technology at UMass Dartmouth, and their photography and all of their scientific archival photos that they are capturing from women in fisheries science who are conducting research with this photography of the ocean floor. So all three of these exhibitions are on public view in downtown New Bedford and also with extended exhibitions online. And we have also partnered with over 15 local organizations to present public programming just like this on the theme of water, from the National Park Service to Fishing Heritage Center and Seaglass Theater Company, that can all be found online with us. So thank you again for having us.
You're very welcome. I remember my conversation with Lindsay Misch, I think it was the end of last year, and she shared with me the water theme. And it was interesting because I immediately thought of Michele's work. So I was first drawn to Michele's work and her underwater swimmers, which originally I had seen done in pastel. And as I got to know Michele a little bit further, she has had demonstrations and talks here at the drawing room. I got to learn a little bit more of her process and how she captures the light and underwater. And I was completely fascinated. So I immediately had said to Lindsay, we have to do a program together.
Yes, it's so perfect. Absolutely.
Yeah. So Michele, I don't know if you want to give us an overview in terms of what first inspired you to start this underwater series, and what you've learned in the process and how you've gone about creating the beautiful work that you do.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be a part of this event, and thank you to Anthi especially. You've been such a cheerleader for my work. I really appreciate it. So this series started about 11 years ago. And I've always painted and drawn. It's always just been my thing. I went to school for art, have a degree in art, and had kind of flopped around. I love to draw people. I love to draw portraits, and couldn't really land on something that I thought could be a series for me. I was doing a little portraiture. I was doing some still life, some landscapes, and one day I happened to be in our backyard pool with my daughter and really noticed for the first time the way the water distorts the figure and how bizarre it can look and the way the light cuts up into ribbons. And I thought, well, let me just get my camera and take some photos. And what I saw was really cool when I got the photos developed. Well, now it's digital, so it's not developed. But when I looked at what I was capturing, so I thought I would try to put some of those images on some abstract pieces I had done in pastel, and that was really neat. And I love the areas of abstraction. And so that started it, and it was like, it just was meant to be, because I started to get some attention from it because it was different. It's kind of a nice niche for me. It's what I love to do. I love to paint the figure, and I love areas of abstraction and painting gesturally. I don't want it to look like a photo. I want my paintings to look like paintings. So, so I started that series in pastel and worked in pastel for a good 10, 11 years, and kind of started to feel like I wanted to work bigger. I wanted to do a little bit more with texture and layers of paint. And so then I started to translate this series into oil about 4 years ago. I was working both pastel and oil, and now I'm almost exclusively in oil, because pastel is a lovely, versatile, expressive medium, but for me, it's limiting as far as size goes. And you're working with this little piece of pastel, and you can't make the big, the big areas of color like you could with like a palette knife or a big brush. And so that's what I wanted to do next. And so I'm really enjoying that. I'm working bigger. So far, my largest piece has been 48 by 48, which was really fun.
One of the interesting things that I have found in your work is that you've incorporated technology into your art process. So you're using a GoPro camera, both video and stills, for reference images for your artwork. And was that just your first go-to in terms of technology, or did you use something else?
My original pictures were taken with just a regular Canon digital camera from above the water, which was fine. And that originally spurred me on to do the series, because I got some crazy images and, things that I thought, oh, that's inspiring me to paint and capture it. But then we tried, I tried a waterproof case with my iPhone, and that was really scary. But it got me some images from under the water, but they were all blue. I never knew what I was taking, if I was even capturing the figure. So then I decided I need something better. So I tried the GoPro, and this was one of the original GoPros. My GoPro is pretty old. But it still does the job. When I took that under the water and I can move it up, some of my favorite images are of the figure with their feet in the water and them standing above the water line. And the GoPro is like at a fish's eye view, like a crab's eye view, looking up, and the distortion is wonderful. Those are really fun to paint. Another surprising thing I noticed once I had the GoPro in hand in the water is the reflection on the surface of the water when you're below it is really incredible. Swimmers know exactly what I'm talking about, but people who really don't like the water and don't swim, they don't really get it. But when you're underwater and you look at the surface of the water, you can see crazy things happening reflected from below, and you get the sky and trees and whatever's above too. So that's really, for me, that holds a lot of, that's a draw for me to capture and paint. And so I get the best of both worlds. I get to paint the figure, which I love, but yet capture those great abstract qualities of the water.
So Michele, I'm curious how you're in your process, starting with your GoPro reference images or the photographs you take, and then seeing the final product. What we've seen behind the scenes is that sometimes details can change, even the color of a swimsuit someone is wearing. Can you describe how your paintings evolve from the photo and why some of these changes take place in your art?
Sure, that's a great question. My reference images are just a jumping off point, and I feel like I really need them for the figure. I can't make that up. If I tried to make up a figure, it wouldn't look correct. The figure is a really difficult thing to to get correct. And I need a reference. I need a good reference. But otherwise, as far as compositional elements and color, I love to play around with those things. And I change up my palette every time I start a new painting. So I use different blues. Typically, of course, my paintings are going to be a lot of blues and greens, and that can get boring for me and for the viewer. So I try to change it up. I try to use a colorful underpainting, which is like a wash of color on the canvas before I start to paint. And typically the bathing suit is something that I can really play with. And sometimes I'll wait until later on in the painting to decide what color that bathing suit will be. Or if I plan it out ahead of time, say I want to do something, a bright pink, because I think it will be great with all the blues. And then it just isn't working. That often will happen with a bigger piece. I plan it out to work on a small, thumbnail, but it doesn't. So then I'll just kind of play around with different pops of color. So, that's one of the really fun parts of these paintings is the bathing suit is often the thing that really pops and gives me some drama in the piece.
There tends to be a lot of movement in your work, with underwater and swimmers moving. Collaboration comes to mind where there are two swimmers that are moving circularly. But the other element that has been introduced in some of your pieces is fabric. Where did the fabric come from, and what inspired you to incorporate that into the swimming pieces with water?
Good question. I actually was inspired by an artist by the name of Joseph Moncada. He's a Spanish artist, and I follow him on Instagram, and he does a lot of underwater things, and he uses a lot of objects like flowers and fabric, and I think his work is fabulous. So he gave, I'm going to give him props here, and that's where I got the idea. So 2 summers ago, I did some photo shoots. We went to Joann Fabrics and got a lot of different colored prints, and I had my models get in the water with the fabric, and it was really beautiful the way the fabric billows underwater and wraps around the figure. So I took a lot of video footage, and then I transfer that video footage to my computer and go frame by frame to find something that looks like it could be a good painting composition. And I have to take a lot of footage to get that one promising image. But as far as the fabric goes, it was fun to paint. It was very labor intensive. I found it to be a nice challenge, but I haven't done one since because it almost increased my time on the painting by, twofold. And so, I'm not saying I won't do it again. It's just that I had my fill of it for now. I do love the effect. I may go back to it, but right now, I haven't done any paintings with fabric in it.
I guess on that same note, how do you know that when one of your current paintings is nearing completion, and how do you know when it's finally done, and what are those final details that you usually add at the end?
Very good question, Amanda. It's hard to know when a painting is done. That most artists will tell you that's a tough question. I feel like if it says what I originally intended it to say, so if something speaks to me in a reference photo and I want to capture that in a painting, if I step back and I feel like, have I captured it? Then I tend to slow down and ask it, can I be finished? I do a lot of stepping back from the canvas. I don't want to get too noodly and detailed and refine it too much. I want it to look like I said, like a painting. And I usually start with my midtones and darks when I first start a painting. I go in thick with a palette knife because that's how I find I get my most intense color. I don't want it to seep back into the canvas. And I find if I start thin and finish thick, I have to keep going over it and going over it. So I start right in with my palette knife and I smear the paint around. And in doing so, I can make it look like water because it's kind of a thick liquid. So it kind of takes to that look. And then as I work through the painting, I'll start to put in I'll gradually build in my highlights and go back and deepen the darks to get that nice contrast and value. And then my last step is usually to put in those sparkles and bubbles. The bubbles I start to put in, but like the sparkle on the bubble that really makes it pop is like the last thing, the really fun thing to do at the end. It's tempting to do it sooner in the painting, but I really have to, stop myself from doing that. It's not worth it. I end up going over it anyway, and I really have to wait, and it's the frosting on the cake that needs to be done at the end.
Yeah, sounds like a special little way to sign off on the painting.
That's right.
Lovely. Yes,
yeah.
Lovely.
That's when I finally pick up my tiny brush. Yeah.
It's actually what I enjoy the most about being underwater, is looking up and seeing the light and the highlights.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think that's part of the reason I'm so drawn to your work and have been. Other than here in the drawing room, Michele, I think you have your work available in a variety of other galleries, as well as you had a show in Manhattan.
Yes,
Can you share that? Yeah, can you share that?
I will share. It will be down by the time AHA Night happens, but we ran through May to July 31st, and it was at Tambourine 2 Gallery on East 82nd Street in Manhattan, and that was a thrill. That was the first time I'd shown in New York, and did well, had some good sales, and inspired me to do some really big work. And then getting it down to New York was a problem because I didn't think about that. but it was great, yeah. And I also show at Coastal Contemporary Gallery in Newport on Thames Street, and Sorel Gallery in Westport, Connecticut. And your place, of course, your lovely shop, Anthi.
Yeah, and actually I'm looking forward to hosting you in person on AHA Night, which is the second Thursday of the month in August. Amanda will be joining us as well. So we'll be able to look at some of your work. I know a lot of the pieces that we will have are G-clay prints.
Yes.
And I know that's a new adventure for you over the past year or two.
Yeah, I've really worked hard to get some of my most popular images scanned at a professional reprographics company, local, and they do a fabulous job. It's called Riverside Art in Somerset. And so they put it through the very high resolution scanner. The original painting goes through the scanner, and then I come in and I color correct the image with them on Photoshop, so that it's very much like the original painting. It's printed on really nice archival Hahnemühle paper. The canvases are printed on a great quality canvas and stretch, so you could actually have something that looks like a painting hanging on your wall, but it's really a print where you can, and the detail is great. So that's what we'll have at your shop.
I'm very much looking forward to hosting you in person here at the drawing room. It's been too long. And Amanda, I'm looking forward to having you here. I hope others will join us so that they can ask questions that we may have missed, and also have an opportunity to see more of your work in person. Thank you.
Looking forward to it.